Welcome to With the First Pick, where we're going team by team to build a perfect 7-round mock draft. Who's on the clock today? Breaking down the Arizona Cardinals, their biggest needs, best fits, and sleeper picks that can make their draft. And by the time we're done, you'll have a complete blueprint for how they can dominate draft weekend. It's time to get on the clock. Let's build that perfect draft. That's Chris Passo. I'm Ryan Wilson. Picking at 16 here. And Traps will only have 6 total selections, so let's make sure we get our money's worth. I think when you talk about needs for the Cardinals, you can talk about offensive line, you can talk about wide receiver, you can talk about edge rusher. And before we get too deep down this rabbit hole, let's look at wide receiver real quick. I just want to see if someone's there, producer striker, and then we can circle back. So even at pick 16, Matthew Golden's already off the board. I sort of like Matthew Golden opposite Marvin Harrison Jr. And they do have Michael Wilson, who I love.
You loved him, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You loved him. I remember that.
Love him because of his last name and love him because of productivity. And Rick Spielman did not like him. So all the reasons to love him. So look, man, we can not overthink it and look at offensive line. And let's take a look at that. But just we'll keep in our back pocket Traps that Luther Burden might be a consideration.
That's who I was looking at too.
Yeah. So Josh Simmons, I love. Kelvin Banks Jr., I love. Gray Zabel, I love. All offensive linemen that will be available. So you have to think about this, right? So Jonah Williams, they signed last year. They acquired him last year. They may have traded for him. I can't remember. But he's the right tackle. And, of course, they have Paris Johnson Jr., the former first-round pick at left tackle. So you can draft some guys with the ideas of playing them later, playing them inside to start, moving Jonah Williams inside. There's some things we could do here. The other thing to keep in mind is go to guard real quick, producer striker, because my other super favorite player is Tyler Booker.
Okay.
So I'll give you the floor. You're the GM. I'm just the assistant GM filling your head.
Okay.
So we could go tackle, Josh Simmons.
All right. So my
Booker.
thought is, and I totally agree with you on Booker, that his film is sensational. If I was the GM of the Cardinals, would be a little bit hesitant to pick Tyler Booker, given his workout, like his pre-draft workout, to use a top 16, top half of the first round pick on someone that just, there's not a long history of these guards who tested as poorly as he did that have become good players. I would
let me ask you this though, Traps. If you lost your vision during that workout and you only saw his tape, where would you take him?
I think I had him graded in the mid to late 20s. So a little early here, but not crazy. What I was going to say, though, is your idea that you were hinting at. I don't really know who's going to play where along the offensive line. I would go Kelvin Banks to give you a lot of versatility, because I think Kelvin Banks can be your right tackle, or he can start at guard and then ultimately kick out to right tackle if Jonah Williams doesn't work out. I just think he provides the pass rush protection prowess that you want with Kyler Murray as your quarterback. And then if things don't work out there, he can be I think a very good guard in time in Arizona.
Yeah. And again, that's a great case of not overthinking it. The other thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if you want to keep moving these guys back and forth. It's like Michael Scott talking about the vasectomy, snip, snap, snap, snap.
Perfect.
You can move Paris Johnson Jr. back to the right side where he played his rookie season. And if Kelvin Banks is more comfortable to the left side, and then you can move Jonah Williams wherever you want. So it gives you some versatility, but I think you're right. He's my OT1, and I know he's sort of making his way down draft boards as we get through this process, but his tape is what it is, and I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, same. I think Kelvin Banks is the pick.
All right, that's a good pick there. I like it. Next up, going to round 2, pick 47. You have to do a 3-round mock draft for the website on Monday. And spoiler alert, I had Matthew Golden going there, and I was super pumped about the idea of the
that would be a good complementary group at wide receiver there if they land.
All right, we got the offensive lineman. Wide receiver could still be a consideration. They don't need a corner right away, but I see Maxwell Harrison staring us in the face, and that feels crazy. So at wide receiver, we have Jaden Higgins, who is more of a Michael Wilson type player than I think. He doesn't add any versatility there. Xavier Restrepo, I love, but he ran the 45 at his pro day, so that's going to ding him a little bit in terms of where he's drafted. Jalen Royals, I'm a huge fan of out of Utah State. He feels like the type of player. My comp for him is Jaden Reed out of Michigan State, plays for the Packers. That's Jaden Reed, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a Jaden Reed out of Penn State, the safety, who I also like in this draft class.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, so
keep those names straight.
There's some choices there at wide receiver. Any other positions you want to look at?
No, I think what you were hinting at corner, that's the name that was when we were almost, the best available. Maxwell Hairston, you're right that it's not a gigantic need, but it's not a Cardinals secondary that's like, hey, you don't need any upgrades anywhere. Like they could use some upgrades just in terms of pure talent infused to that secondary. And I think Hairston would certainly give that with the workout that he saw or that we saw from him and just what he showed in the SEC moving around at Kentucky. Very, very dynamic mover.
Yeah. So they have Sean Murphy Bunting, who's obviously the starter. Max Melton, the year 2 guy, had a really good season last year. Garrett Williams suffered the ACL coming out of Syracuse. He's the nickelback. But I think to your point, this feels like not only insane value, but if you were to ask the Cardinals on the clock at pick 47 and Maxwell Hairston was still there, I would imagine he would be one of the top players at their board, even though it's not the biggest need. I'm fine taking Maxwell Hairston here because you get good football players and then you coach them up and you go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's do it. Play him in the nickel, play him outside, do whatever you want to with him.
Next
had the shoulder issue last year, but I don't think it's anything that's teams are worried about. Next up, pick 78. So let's see wide receiver now, what that looks like. Striker. So Jalen Royals is still there. Tez Johnson, who's fun, but ran the 4.51 and weighs 152-ish maybe. So that's something to keep in mind. Savion Williams is a version of Cordero Patterson in terms of his versatility. You want to do wide receiver or you want to look somewhere else?
I think Jalen Royals makes a lot of sense because if you're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., they brought in Zay Jones. We mentioned your guy, Michael Wilson. They have big bodies who are like possession receivers. There's not a lot of underneath yards after the catch in this receiver group outside of Greg Dortch. And I think Jalen Royals gives a lot of that. He's got the kind of the Deebo Samuel contact balance to be good after the catch. I think he would provide just a different flavor at the wide receiver spot in this offense.
Yeah, and one of the knocks on Jalen before he got hurt last season was teams wondered how fast he was. Well, he ran in the 4.4s, so he's plenty fast. I thought he played fast, and we don't know how fast Marvin Harrison is because he's never run, I don't think. So usually guys who don't run aren't burners. Michael Wilson may have time fast, but I don't think he plays particularly fast. So you need a little juice.
Yep.
And I love the idea of adding Jalen Royals here. So, all right. This feels to me like another great draft, Traps, I'm sure.
Agreed. I mean, hitting needs and then getting someone like Hairston this late, I feel like even getting Royals at 78 is pretty good value for him.
Yeah. And the comeback will be, well, this won't happen in real life. Well, joke's on you, viewer. We didn't make the mock draft simulator. So,
exactly.
In this simulation.
Do you hate even with Darius Robinson, the first round pick last year, and signing Josh Sweat? Do you hate addressing the edge rusher spot or defensive tackle even after they signed Dalvin Tomlinson? It's kind of felt like with Jonathan Gannon and his long history in Philadelphia and just how deep and good that defensive line was that it's still a front seven in Arizona that I think could use, again, more talent to just be deeper than they've been up front in a long time.
Absolutely. And they didn't get much from Darius last year because he was injured. So you also have to have those contingencies. And as the old saying goes, you can never have enough edge rushers.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm with you on that. So throw in defensive line in there too, Striker, and we'll just double up and see what it looks like best available wise. So Aeneas Peoples is a spark plug, as is Jamari Caldwell. I like Peoples a little better in terms of where I have him graded, but both really good players, Virginia Tech and Oregon, respectively. Q Robinson is a situational pass rusher early on in his career, so he might be around a little bit later. Barron Sorrell out of Texas, I absolutely love. Savion Jones out of LSU is a really good football player. Anything? Scroll down a little bit here, Striker. See if there are any other names that pop. Tyler Batty. I'm laughing because he's the guy you build in the lab, and he's the first guy off the bus. He looks like Calais Campbell getting off the bus.
He does. I didn't love his film, though. I didn't love his
I liked him a little bit, but not necessarily at this point at 78. So anything at 78 that strikes your fancy here?
Scroll up a little bit. I like Antoine Powell-Ryland. He has short arms, but I think everything else about his game, bend, pass rush moves, are excellent. But maybe Aeneas Peoples just for the pass rushing juice, because you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson. You don't really, I mean, Dante Stills has played well. He's that undersized rusher, but I think Peoples can really be that maybe 30, 40, 50 pressure a season guy on the interior of the defensive line, just because of how good his first step is off the ball.
I'm with you. I'm looking up my grades, and I have him as a midday 2 guy. So that's right where we are. Yeah, so that feels good. Let me see. My comp for him is Geno Atkins, 6 feet, 282. Has short arms. I don't care. Like he
was really productive despite those in college.
Yeah, and here's the thing and I'm glad you mentioned that because we talked to Braden Fisk last year at the combine. He goes, I know I have short arms. I know how to win because I've had short arms my entire life. And if we did a redraft today, he would be a first round pick. So
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
we overthink this stuff. All right, let's do Aeneas Peoples out of Tech. Man, he's a good football player. This defense is getting some juice.
And it
all right
certainly needed it. I mean, after free agency, we saw what they did to bring in Sweat and Tomlinson, Davis Gaither. They still need to add pieces on that side.
All right, 3 picks ago. We're now on day 3, pick 115. So recap what we have here, striker. So we have the offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks, Maxwell Harrison, the corner, Jalen Royals, the wide receiver, and Aeneas Peoples, the defensive lineman here. All right. So we can go in any direction we want here.
We really can at this point.
Looking at best available. They signed who's the running back they got? They got a running back. So I think
Trey Benson and
Trey Benson.
Trey Benson, who I loved last year.
James
Mercado played well. Yeah.
Okay, they're fine there. Anything else strike you as a tight end? They have, of course, Trey McBride. They have Tip Ryman from last year, who's a fun player. Elijah Hickens, the converted wide receiver from Stanford's also on the roster. So that's not a huge need.
Maybe we go back to edge.
Yeah, let's go to edge.
Just to add some more depth there beyond Josh Sweat. I love Josh Joyner. I think he would make a lot of sense as kind of that classic 4-3 defensive end who's not going to probably ever be a Pro Bowler, but is just going to, I think, be in the NFL for 10 years because he's good against the run. Big-time athlete with really long arms.
All right, let's start. Put that name in there, and then So it's funny, man. I have him as a late day 3 guy. My comp for him was Julian Aquara, 6'4", 262, 34-inch arms, running a 4.6. I can get behind all that. But the name right below him is the guy that
that's your guy.
Love. Let me just double check. So I have him graded a little higher, 6'4", 276.
They're similar players.
They are similar players, and they are also in the Darius Robinson sort of big edge mold. Let's go with Josh Joyner. He had a really good Senior Bowl as well. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah, 2 very similar players there with Tyrion Dawkins from Georgia.
Yeah. And 2 players, by the way, that media folks haven't been talking a lot about, at least that I haven't seen them talking about. And I think guys are going to get drafted, and maybe folks will be like, hey, who are those guys? And hopefully you watch this and you'll know. All right, 2 picks to go here. Now we're in round 5 at pick 152. So we have
this is 225.
Oh, 225?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. I got
we just picked last pick. Yep.
Thank you. This is the pick for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what do you like? Because
maybe linebacker. No, they have Owen Papo. They signed Michael Walker. Do you hate picking a quarterback here?
No, they have Kyler, they have Jacoby Brissett, and they have Clayton Tune. If there's a guy that you like,
let's see if
he's a 7th round pick.
Yeah, maybe there's not really anyone that's really exciting.
So, right, there's Max Brosmer and Seth Hennigan. Max was at the Shrine. Seth was at the Senior Bowl. I like both those players, but in terms of their chances of making the roster, probably minimum.
What about interior offensive line?
Yep, let's go.
Let's go IOL. I like Joshua Gray from Oregon State. I think he moves really well.
Let's do it.
He makes a lot of sense just as that developmental guy you pick late in round 7 and just hope he gets more strength to his game in the NFL.
Yep, Josh Gray. And it's funny because a lot of times we've had Clay Webb go, another guy that I like, a similar type player. I have Joshua Gray as an early day 3 guy. Josh Myers is my comp for him. So makes sense.
Yeah, let's do it.
Plays left guard. Last season, played left tackle prior to that, so he has a little versatility. He's undersized at 299, but I think you and I agree he's going to move inside at the next level full time. So that's it. So what we got here? I mean, you don't have to like this class, and you can tell that I'm wondering why people don't love our drafts as much. This one feels like if I just saw this on sheet of paper and you said this is what happens a month from now, I'd be like, this feels like an A draft. Kelvin Banks, middle of 1st round. Put him wherever it makes sense early on, and he can play tackle as his career develops. Maxwell Harrison, I get Devin Witherspoon vibes with him, just in terms of the size and the anger with which he plays.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Feistiness is a great word for it. Jalen Royals, wide receiver out of Utah State, in the 3rd round. Aeneas Peoples, juiced up interior defensive lineman, in round 4. Then in round 5, Josh Joyner, the edge rusher out of Minnesota, 265 and change, plays with insane athleticism, and finally, some depth along the offensive line. Josh Gray out of Oregon State. All right, Traps, that wraps up the perfect Cardinals draft class. Make sure to subscribe to NFL on CBS on YouTube and download with the first pick wherever you get your podcast. And stay tuned for more perfect mock drafts because we're hitting all 32 teams.